Alright guys, this is part 8 of the 2JZ-VVTi porting series. So in the last videos we were doing the roof on all the ports and the injector area. Not that we're using the injector area, but we're just tidying that up, finishing off the top end of the divider, extending the divider into the injector area a little bit, shaping that area, and constantly measuring. And this is the other benefit of doing the same area, is we can use the non-touched area as our datum reference to make sure we're moving the floor or the walls or whatever in the right direction, and we're keeping it on that target on the CSA. Now, once we've, in this stage, we're going to shape the guides. So I like them like a shark fin. Remember, fluids, all fluids, whether it be water or air, function very, very similar. The only difference between air as a fluid and water as a fluid is one's compressible, one isn't. So air is compressible, so hence why we get these density gradients and density veins and rarefication through the airstream, which changes, puts little density bars in it. That's why when we talk about induction tuning on the third harmonic, we're trying to get that denser air right at the intake valve as it opens to help overlap and help that whole scavenging mechanism. But more to the point that I'm trying to make is shaping is the key. We need to tell the air that a guide's coming, because we don't want it to hit that black body and cause wraparound and turbulence around the back of it. And as I've explained before, if you look at just a round pylon in the water when tide's coming in and out, you'll see this exact mechanism that I'm talking about. Hence why we want to streamline it like a shark, a shark's fin. And you'll see that it has a nice gentle taper coming into it, splitting the water apart, and then joins it back in on the other side. Unfortunately, we can't join it back in on this side, but we can help it to split and divide the air a little bit to help it get around that valve that's in the way, right? And the other aspect I want to talk about is surface finish. In this one, we'll be texturing the port with a 60 and 80 grit. So this will be a high-speed head that runs a plasma man intake, which is probably on the smaller of the cross-sectional areas and far better high-speed for what I want. I like their manifolds, mainly because the math is bang on my math, which is brilliant. Some of the other manufacturers are just way too big, in my opinion. You see it in the horsepower per PSI rating. They don't make as good a horsepower per PSI. And they morph very, very well, or use a little bit of morphing. And by that I mean a lot of manufacturers like to go to a round port rather than making the shape of the entry similar to the port, because if we keep it similar, we're not getting any sideways morphing. So in other words, taking a round to a rectangle, the air that's high on the round needs to morph into a different shape. So it puts actual pressure on the air, and that obviously is detrimental to flow. And again, we're talking 0.1, 0.2, 0.3%, so minimal, but again, motorsport's all about collecting those 1% or 0.5% and stacking them up. So I'll show you the manifold quickly. Okay, so here's Plasma Man's intake, and as you can see, they've gone to an oval port, and they have for a few years now. And I really like this because, again, like I was talking about it, you're not morphing the air as hard. So if this is a circle, we'd have far more air area up here and down here, which has to get squished into that port shape, as you can see out the other side. And you can see this oval is very, very similar. So this is really, really helpful for stabilizing those parallel airwaves in the manifold itself. Hence why I like them. And if we look at the cross-sectional area, it's not huge. They don't put a hell of a lot of taper in it because they're based on the VE-NA profile, which should always be how we target airspeed. So here you can see we've just started to rough that one out, and this one's finished in its shape. As you can see, we've shaped that to that shark fin style that I was talking about originally, so we can separate the air earlier. and that's the other side we haven't done. So getting there slowly. All right, so this is basically the port roughed out. I'll see if I can focus in on the guides. You can see we've shaped them up on all the cylinder head now. And again, these are just roughed out because I'm going to go through with the cartridge roll and sand these up to 60 to 80 grit. I'll just see if I can zoom in a little bit. Alright, and from here we go to sanding, which we've already done 3 of these already. So that's it on the sanded finish. So that's a 80 grit so far, as you can see, not too bad. Again, I want a really fine boundary layer in this thing because it is going to be a high-speed head, being a 3.25 litre stroker as well. So I'm really trying to optimize the high speed, and I don't want a lot of boundary layer swelling. So we're going to a much finer texture, which is how I do a lot of these race heads, rather than a cutter finish like you've seen me do with the Honda, because their airspeed factors are a little bit lower than what this one will be. And running a Plasma Man, it doesn't really need the help that other cylinder heads need as far as keeping the fuel off the boundary layer. So we're really focusing on a nice fine RA here for obvious reasons, and yeah, there it is. Anyway, I'll get it finished up and show you some more a bit later on.